Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I am your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm privileged to welcome an accomplished health tech entrepreneur from Bangalore, India, Mr. Sabarinath U. Shabri, welcome to the show.
Thanks a ton, Ashutosh. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here on this podcast.
Thank you. Sabarinath is the co-founder of Healspan. So let me start by asking the first question, Shabri. What inspired you to start Healspan, and what is the mission of the company?
Sure. So I think with what's the case with most founders, Healspan again spawned from a very personal experience of mine. So I was working with Myntra in a CNB role. I was heading the compensation and benefits practice. And therefore insurance, employee insurance and benefits was my portfolio. So as it happened, I got sick and I got admitted to hospital once. And I was in Apollo Hospital. It's fantastic quality of care, lovely doctors and nurses, the staff, everybody is supportive. But despite all of that, it took about 12 hours for my discharge approval from insurer to come in. And this is with everybody's support.
Yeah.
So I then called up after getting home, getting better, I called up my insurance consultant, Abhishek Sinha, who is now my co-founder, and kind of tried going through the reasons as to why this happens. Is this a universal experience, and figuring out what can we do to solve this? And at that point of time, the lens was improving employee experience. But as we look more into the data, what we realized is that this is not a problem that you can solve at the insurer side or at the even the employer as a corporate side, right? So that's where we kind of came to the conclusion. We looked at a lot of data. What we realized is you have to be supporting the provider, the healthcare provider, the hospital, to provide that quality of care.
Right.
Not just the quality of care, the experience. So today, I think we focus a lot on the quality of care. It has improved tremendously to the point where we get international patients coming to India for their healthcare. But the experience, what is still lacking is what we realized. So for example, in the US, it doesn't matter what is your outstanding bill. You go home once the doctor says you can go home.
Yeah.
India, you're a prisoner to the hospital till the time you clear the bill or the insurance approval comes in.
Absolutely.
So this is where we started off, and we kind of wanted to streamline the experience of patients and their families while accessing healthcare to make healthcare more accessible and insurance more accessible. So that's what the entire funder behind Healspan. Why did we start, or what is our long-term vision? To put it in a very, so our mission statement is to kind of improve every aspect of around healthcare, except the core healthcare, right? So that's why we don't position ourselves as a, claims company. We are Healspan. We are there everywhere where there is any healing journey. We are there to improve the long-term vision is to improve the experience across all parts of the healing journey.
Very well said. Okay. But continuing from what you just said, and I've had a similar experience when I was admitted during the COVID period. What is it that you are doing in Healspan that is reducing the 12 hours to maybe 1 hour?
Sure. So there are 2-3 parts to this, what we do. So first part that we address is the different perspective. So the way a hospital approaches insurance claim is very different from the way an insurer looks at a claim. The insurer looks at, this is the risk that I have underwritten, and the incident of this risk has happened, and therefore how much do I pay out? The hospital is looking at, the doctor is looking at, is this the best treatment for my patient? These are very conflicting lenses to take. So what we do is we provide the expertise to bridge the gap, to make sure. So when we work with the hospital, we make sure they're advised on the right way to kind of, what are the right documents required, what are the right way to kind of present these documents to the insurer, so that what is rightfully due to the hospital, they get paid, and there are procedural delays. So basically, we put in a layer between the claim submission. So basically, we are a claim aggregator portal, right? So once it's submitted on our portal, before it goes to the TPA, there is a layer of quality control that happens that reduces a lot of back and forth conversation with the insurers and TPAs. So each time there is a query that comes in or a clarification request that comes in from the insurer, that's 4 hours wasted. And in an average discharge, there are usually one or two of these, leading to 8 to 12 hours of wait time. What we try to do is eliminate those or at least aggressively reduce those queries and therefore reduce the number of cycles that this happens, therefore reduce the discharge time. What we also try to do is overall reduce the time to upload. So we do things like OCR to kind of read the documents without having to do data entry. We pre-generate. So if you have entered the data in the system, we generate pre-filled claim forms. So we do a lot of things to also reduce the time to filing. And then of course the quality control takes over and reduces the number of queries. And in a larger, now take a step back at a much larger scale, we also tie the entire process together with pure operational expertise. And this is critical because in a hospital, generally the departments that manage the initial authorization is different from the one that's tracking the payments and settlements. So reconciliation is a nightmare. So we tie through everything, and with honestly, it's just plain process improvement at the end of the day. We are able to aggressively reduce the turnaround time required for both approvals and settlements.
Well
So
said.
that's what we do.
Well said. And when you say that you are sitting in between the TPA and the hospital or the insurance company, what I'm understanding is that if I'm going to be admitted in hospital, I should submit my claim to Healspan rather than to someone else. Is that what it is?
No, you can submit it to the hospital. So we work with hospitals. So we're a B2B firm. We enable the hospitals to do better with their insurance claim.
Okay.
So for a patient at the moment, honestly, it wouldn't look any different.
I see.
It's just as your hospital works with us, then we're able to provide that experience.
I understand. Okay. And what feedback have you received, Shabri, from hospitals and patients about the impact of your services?
So we do receive a lot of feedback from our client hospitals. So at the moment, we are not directly reaching out to patients. So we don't have a lot of direct feedback from patients, but we do have a lot of good feedback. So in fact, if you go check our client hospitals, you will see a lot of good Google reviews as well. But from the hospitals, the major positive feedback that we get is around how we're able to help them tie the entire process together, help them do reconciliation, help them reduce the queries, and therefore we are able to discharge patients faster. For some hospitals, this is a big deal, right? In terms of being able to manage the bed occupancy. For some, it's reducing their cash flow crunch. So earlier, when you would have had to wait for 45 to 60 days to receive payments from the insurer, because now the documents are proper, the insurers will also settle them like in 20 days, 25 days. So on top of this, of course, we do have additional financial products as well that allow us to bring this down further from say 25 days to zero. That's also something we're able to do. But overall, we receive very positive feedback on tying the entire process together. We do a lot of analytics and dashboarding for our clients as well. Very clear picture and presenting. You know what? This is where your denial, short payments, all of these are coming from. If you do better in XYZ things, these metrics will improve. So I think, and in fact, some of our clients have come on board purely for that data view of what we are able to show them, saying that these are the areas of improvement.
Wonderful.
So that's where we get most of our good feedback.
Fantastic. Shabri, also, what is the Anywhere cashless facility that you have, and how does it work?
So Anywhere cashless is something I'm very, very happy that happened, and it's something that we actually were hoping for it. So in the entire landscape of insurtech companies that work with hospitals, today there are two kinds of companies. So one that focus on the reimbursement part and the financing side of it, and one that focus on cashless. I think on the side that's cashless, there are very few companies like us. And we've been bullish on cashless for about a year before this notification came out. And cashless anywhere is essentially, so the notification essentially enables or directs all insurers to provide cashless in every hospital, every accredited recognized hospital, irrespective of their empanelment status. Earlier, insurance empanelment used to be, for any hospital, used to be a 3 to 4 month process at the very least, right? And sometimes even 6 to 8 months it would take just to get on insurer's panel. Now with this, IRD has laid down specific guidelines with which you are able to kind of send a cashless request to an insurer Of course, certain terms and conditions apply, like you have to give 48 hours time window for the TPA to respond, etc. There are certain additional documents that you have to provide related to your accreditation, registration, etc. But once you provide these documents, you can actually avail cashless in any hospital. Now, this opens up an entire new landscape in terms of how we view insurance, right? So, a lot of policies, for example, and this is vast implications in how, of course, again, we keep going back to the two Indias story, right? This is major implications for the Bharat side of the story. So here, so for the smaller hospitals in tier two, tier three cities, which have traditionally been out of insurance network, out of the about 60, 70,000 hospitals in India, only about 20 to 25,000 hospitals are in the insurance network. The remaining 40,000 odd hospitals now have the ability to send in a cashless request. So, which means now insurance is more useful for people in those locations, which means insurance penetration can increase further. So, we see this as an absolutely positive move, and just tier two, tier three cities, right? So, our government has also been very bullish on Ayush and indigenous treatment protocols, and insurers do cover that as well. So what we are now able to do is push cashless everywhere for Ayush treatments as well. So earlier cashless treatment were not possible on Ayush. Now that is becoming possible. So we see a lot of utility, and there's a very welcome change. Of course, there will be implementation challenges. There are challenges for the hospital to kind of go ahead and do this in terms of the pricing that they get, in terms of the time for approval, response time, etc. There are challenges. But it's an absolutely wonderful initiative, and we're more than proud to kind of get back on this and support this initiative.
Oh, wonderful. And one of the big challenges that is always there, and you've spoken about this a couple of times already, but I'm going to ask you the question again. The challenge is how does one ensure the necessary documentation and conditions are met? Because either your Aadhaar card is not there, or if you've got the Aadhaar card, the reverse of the Aadhaar card is. And I often wonder, when you've got a DigiLocker, when you've got so many of the other, facilities available, why is it that every time one goes for an insurance settlement to the hospital, you need to produce all the same documents all over again?
Right. So this may change in the near future. So that's another initiative from, again, so I'm actually glad to say that there's a lot of change coming in from the regulatory side, from the government side in this domain, right? So that's another initiative that I'm more than happy to talk about. That's the health claims exchange. So right now, with every claim, you have to produce the documents all over again. There is no a way for patients to track medical documents or claim records. There is no centralized record keeping. But with National Health Claims Exchange, which is something that we are also working on, integrating with that, now everything is dependent on your Aadhaar ID, which is the Ayushman Bharat, the digital ID, which is equivalent of Aadhaar for health, for your health benefits. This is tied to every single health record. So this is so that's where the entire Ayushman Bharat mission comes in. Your health records are digitized and saved online. So next time you go to a doctor and the doctor wants to pull out your health records, if they have an access, just the way cell phone company might send you an Aadhaar validation OTP, they will be able to kind of request an OTP. You will enter an OTP on your mobile, and the doctor will receive. So you authenticate it, so the doctor receives the previous health records. In a similar fashion, we believe that once the National Health Claims Exchange, so this is a protocol that sits on top of the ABDM stack, Ayushman Bharat stack, and this is an exchange collection of open APIs through which the claims can be processed, with of course decentralized data storage. But we believe that once this happens, we will be able to kind of get to a point where either your Aadhaar ID or your insurance e-card, one of these documents is sufficient to get all the KYC details. Of course, medical documents will vary each time, but your KYC can be done digitally in one go. But of course, this is a long shot, right? This is not reality at the moment, but we hope for this to happen. So what we are also doing is we are also developing our abilities and capabilities in terms of digital documentation, digital signatures, generating documents digitally. In fact, we are even talking to a few insurers and TPAs in terms of how do we make the entire documentation digital. So I think that's a direction that the industry will take. And I'm very positive about the direction where it is going. So in fact, we already work with a couple of TPAs in terms of things like cashless everywhere. We have direct ties with them so to enable that. So the TPA or insurer universe response has also been very positive to these changes. So I have no doubt that this will happen in the near future.
I'm sure. Well said. And Sabri, how do you see the role of AI and machine learning in the future of healthcare administration and claims management?
One of use of AI is something that I'm very bullish about, and I don't say that lightly. I'm not somebody who likes jargon. I hate throwing. In fact, if you look at what Healspan does, you will not see any mention of AI anywhere, although that is a part of what we do. In fact, what we are building, so the next version of the product has a significant AI backend. That's not something that we talk about. So what we're trying to do is in terms of documentation, right? So today, how does a hospital or a person file a claim? There's 2-3 long forms that you fill in manually, you scan them, then there are 20 medical documents, you scan them, then you go onto the insurer's website, fill up another long form with duplicate information, then you upload these documents, and then you submit the documents online. This entire process takes you good 30 minutes. What we are trying to do is say you have medical documentation. The hospital bill that will have every necessary information. It will have your room number. It will have the treatment that you have undergone. The discharge summary will have a detail of the treatment that you've undergone. Right. Why do you have to enter all the data all over again when you can just upload these documents, read from these documents, use AI to bridge the gaps, so then just do a validation. In fact, after a certain point, I don't even think the manual validation will be necessary. We are using AI to bridge the gap between what is being read and what is needed, and then push this to the insurer's side, hopefully via the NSCX very soon. Then what this becomes is a like Hero. So I used to work for Hero long back, right? So and they had this, I think their CD100 or they had this tagline: "Fill it, shut it, forget it." So they were referring to the long, mileage of the motorcycle. They wrote to upload, click on submit, and forget it. So that's the journey that we want to get to in terms of we want to get to. And here the crux of it is being played by AI. But this is at our end, right? So insurers, TPAs have more use cases of AI in terms of claim adjudication, reducing the manual intervention in a claim adjudication. It cannot happen without AI and ML.
Right.
So a lot of, especially some of the larger TPAs in India do use some form of AI ML to kind of, figure out the adjudication outcomes. We have players like Vitraya who actually do have certain amount of auto adjudication based on AI. So I do think that AI will kind of speed up the processing of insurance, right? And enable insurers to adjudicate claims much faster and in a more consistent and better fashion.
Great response. Thank you. I have time for 2 or 3 more questions. What strategies do you use to build and maintain partnerships with hospitals and insurance companies?
So the way we look at, so hospitals are our customers, right? So for our clients, again, I think it's a very, there is conventional product wisdom around building one product and sticking to the product that you're good at. But to be honest, I don't think that's something that we subscribe to, because although we are a product company, we are a very, how do I say, it's a middle class service startup, right? So to speak. So if a client needs something, client wants something, we see that we can do it for them, we will do it. So I think there's also this thing around doing things that don't scale. So we do things that don't scale. So for our clients, it doesn't matter if this is our core expertise, this is adjacent to it. If this is something that we can do it for our clients, we will do it. So that's, I think, one thing that most of our clients have seen, and they do appreciate that we don't say not my job. Not my job is not a line that will come out of anybody in my anybody in my team. So I think that's one thing that we do in terms of maintaining the relationship. They know that they can come to us with anything, and we will support as much as possible. In terms of maintaining relationships with insurers and TPAs, this is a bit more tricky. But again, we have been very lucky in that domain because most of my core team is from the insurance background. So we've got Manjula Jairam, who's the former head of operations at MediAssist. Abhishek himself has spent about 10 years in insurance broking. Uh, and of course, some of our senior doctors are also have TPA experience, have worked with TPA brokers in the past. So for us, we do have a lot of connections in the insurance domain as such. That helps. But what we try to do in terms of work practice is to help them accomplish what they want to do. So, for example, a TPA might actually be interested in reducing the turnaround time. So we work with MediAssist has this product called Express Checkout. We help evangelize and spread that product to all our partner hospitals. What we're trying to do is avoid reinventing the wheel. Somebody's done a good work. It doesn't matter who it comes from. So our point is to improve the ecosystem. So we go ahead and support them in evangelizing the product, making sure that product goes live in all of our partner hospitals and patients are able to make use of it. We provide whatever operation support is needed. And this is not something that we monetize on that side. So with insurers and TPAs, we try to deliver them value in terms of things that they are trying to accomplish, which we can support them with. And of course, the hospital is also there at the other end. So all of our billing and invoicing goes to the hospitals only. So we don't bill insurers and TPAs as such.
Well said. And my last question to you, given the amount of understanding you have of the insurance space now, how do you see healthcare administration landscape evolving in the next few years? And what role do you envision for Healthspan?
So I think, like you've said, right, I think that has come up in the conversation before. There's a lot of role for technology to play in how healthcare is managed in the next 5 to 6 years, 5 to 10 years in India. Some of the technological landscape changes are going to be driven by regulatory agencies itself. So I'm very bullish about NHCX and the ABDM mission and the way that will change the way we manage documentation, healthcare documentation, pure ABDM, the health records for health records and the NHCX for insurance. I genuinely believe that will change the way we handle insurance claims and health records. What will also happen, I think, is that AI will play a significant role. We will have much lower overheads in terms of insurance processing or claim processing or adjudication. We'll have a lot lower overheads. In fact, we are already at a point where we are able to automate a lot of things using AI and reduce the overheads. But I think from a larger level, one of the things that I am from a at a national level, right, where healthcare access is going, I think we are going to end up in a fairly sweet spot of, and this is something I'm very optimistic about, right? We've got we're not going to fully single payer healthcare like Canada or UK NHS, but I think we'll end up with a combination of state sponsored healthcare along with high quality private healthcare that is available, and I think that is a good place to be where you're not limiting healthcare access by state income, and you're not limiting healthcare access by waiting list, by the means of waiting list. So I think that's a very good place for us to be. And I think, so I'm in general very optimistic about where healthcare in the country is headed.
Well said. On that note, Shabri, thank you so much for speaking to me. I loved your hero line, which is fill it, shut it, forget it. And I just hope someday Healspan will be able to do something similar to us for insurance, where you're admitted and you walk back home without have to get more worried about post hospitalization recovery rather than how do I settle my bill and will it be settled by my insurance companies, etc. My conversation with you today has been so fascinating because I didn't know much about insurance, but only what I know is just as a user. Thank you for all the amazing stuff that you're doing. And I'm sure this will bear fruit first for all your clients and your customers, and of course for you as an entrepreneur and your team. Thank you for speaking to me and good luck to you.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure of wonderful questions. I had a really good time answering some of those questions, and as always, pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the brand called You.